Hi guys, it's Tamra. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back today. We're going to talk this week about psychosis, but we're going to talk about it focusing on two distinct disorders. One is delusions and the other is hallucinations. But in this video today, in today's topic, we're going to talk about delusions. I want to give you some knowledge about what they are. I want to point out specific ones. And then in the next video, we're going to talk about what not to do. And if you're interested in what to do, let me know in the comment section below and I will post another video on that. So thank you once again for those who are subscribed to my channel for coming back. And for those who are new or may not be subscribed, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on the side so then that way you can stick around with us and learn things and suggest topics, ask questions, and be a part of our growing community. So the benefits for you in today's video is that you're going to learn about delusions, you're going to learn about specific ones, maybe some you've never heard of. And then in the next video, we're going to talk about what not to do, because a lot of people struggle with what to do. What do you do with a person who strongly believes something and you can't get them not to believe it? Delusions. So what are they? Well, delusions are false beliefs held to be true, despite evidence to the contrary. Okay, they are, I'm going out of focus. Don't know why I'm going out of focus, guys, but I am. I apologize for that. But delusions are false beliefs held to be true despite evidence to the contrary. They are false beliefs, of course, but not in their mind. In their mind, it's very real. There's no personal insight to determine what is and what is not appropriate. There is no self-awareness to be able to ask oneself if something that they are believing really has a firm foundation or factual objective basis. There's no ability to turn the lens back on themselves and question, why would this happen? Or really, does that make sense? Or how can I prove that? There's none of that going on. There's no constructive, objective mental processes going on in that individual. Everything is based off of associations, right? Associations between things. So being able to tie things together, or here's one dot, here's one dot, here's one dot, and everything ties together. So for the person who is delusional, or for the person who holds a false belief true, despite all evidence to the contrary, despite there being no facts whatsoever, that individual finds associations, they find connections, they find ways to connect the dots. For me, just starting out in the field over 11 years ago, I found it very difficult to conceptualize how these individuals can seem so very sane and so very intelligent and so very charming and authentic and realistic, and yet they hold this one specific belief and they cannot shake their belief system. It is very cemented. So the way that I want you to think about delusions is, they are cemented, they are firm, and they are basically held to be true in a factual way to that individual. It's just like you believing that, let's say, for example, you're biracial, right? So you firmly believe that you are biracial because your mom is white, your dad is black, or your mom is black, your dad is white, or you're Korean and your dad is Caucasian, whatever the case may be. You firmly believe that you're biracial, right? You see it, you know by family pictures you're biracial, but let's just say somebody comes up to you and says, I'm sorry, you're not biracial. What are you going to say? You're going to say, I am. And they're going to say, no, you're not. I don't see the correlation. And you're going to say, well, I have pictures. Well, yeah, I have some pictures of my mom and dad. And that person may say, really? Find the pictures for me, because it's very clear to me based on your skin color that you're not biracial. And so can you imagine the emotional and psychological trigger that would be for you? Can you imagine feeling like, I have to prove that I'm biracial, right? Can you imagine having to argue that you are what you say you are based on, pictures that you saw, based on information that you have? So kind of conceptualize it that way, that someone with delusions firmly believes what they are saying to that extent. They believe they have proof. They believe it's what it is. It doesn't mean they're always psychotic. They just believe what they believe because they think it's true. There you have it. And they feel like they have enough evidence and objectivity and reality to say it's true. Okay? So delusions can be two things. Delusions can be non-bizarre or they can be bizarre. So non-bizarre delusions are basically those delusions that I just spoke about. Having that strong belief, nobody's able to move you. You firmly believe that it's true. It can be true in a real world, right? You could be biracial. It can be true. Even if it's a small percentage of truth, there's still a possibility. So a non-bizarre delusion has a small chance of possibly being true in the real world. So another example of a non-bizarre belief would be something like, I was kidnapped and abducted. I was kidnapped and abducted during a drug deal with my best friend who smokes marijuana. That's a possibility. Whether it happened or not, questionable. But is it possible? Definitely. It happens every day in the United States. So yeah, that's possible. Okay. A bizarre delusion, however, is not possible. It does not have even a slither of possibility or truth. So a bizarre delusion would be something like, I was asleep last night and I woke up and I saw two cows over in the corner and they looked at me strange and they told me that they were going to kill me. And I'm scared to death. Now, the individual's emotional reaction may be very, very authentic. The individual's thought process may be very, very authentic in the sense that, they're afraid and they're emotional. Okay, but is the delusion or the belief bizarre? Definitely. We all know that we're not going to wake up and look in the corner and see cows. Okay, so that's the way that you want to decipher and kind of differentiate those two things. Bizarre delusions and non-bizarre delusions, right? Okay, so then what are the various types of delusions? Well, I'm going to start with the most bizarre because I'm sure you guys have never heard of this. And the term is pseudopsyesis. Pseudopsyesis. I'm going to put that over here for you. Basically, it's a false pregnancy. It's an individual who claims with all of their heart and all of their mind that they are pregnant. They take a little pouch that, they may have developed because of weight gain and they say, I'm pregnant. They may even go to doctors and claim that the doctors are not right. An individual suffering from this or dealing with this, it's a form of delusional belief. Because the person may or may not be psychotic, but the person may go to a doctor and say, you know what, the tools that he used were not appropriate. He didn't perform this test and he didn't perform that test. And even though he said it's going to be an evasive test, an evasive test or a test that's going to, really hurt and harm my body, he still didn't perform it. And that makes me think that there's still something there. You may also get an individual to say, I can't prove that I'm expecting, but I just feel like there's something there. It's a delusional belief, pseudopsyesis, okay? And, if the term is too hard for you to pronounce, you can just say false pregnancy because that's what it's typically called. All right. The next one is a grandiose delusion. This is the most common delusion that we see in the mental health field. And I'm sure it's a delusion that you have seen before, but you didn't know how to quite point it out. A grandiose belief is a belief of some kind of extraordinary significance. You are, really powerful in how you do things. You're a God, you're a divine presence. There's no real foundation or basis for it. It really does far exceed Christian beliefs of having an internal presence of God that brings light to a certain place. That's totally different from somebody who's grandiose. A grandiose person is going to say that they are God, that they are at the top. And so that's the hard part when it comes to grandiosity, is being able to differentiate and kind of separate the two. How do we separate an individual who's overly confident, narcissistic, and possibly religious from an individual who's grandiose? That's why you have people like me who can ask the right questions to get to the bottom of that. But grandiosity is one delusion, or the second delusion we can mention today. The third delusion is erotomanic. And the erotomanic type is basically the delusion of you are either romantically engaged with someone who doesn't know you at all, or your spouse is out cheating on you, which is the next delusion, which is the jealous delusion. I like to put these things together because they're pretty much the same thing. The erotomanic delusion says there's somebody out there, we've been communicating through the TV screen, and we have a connection. We're going to be married. You know, we talk to each other all the time. You may get an individual say something like, you know, I got an email from this person and I strongly believe that we have a connection. It's just that, you know, we're spiritually connected and so we can't be together right now. You may hear something like that. That's a erotomanic type delusion. The individual really does desire to be with that person that they admire. But the sad part about it is that the other person has no idea that this person exists, right? There's been no communication or little communication, or maybe even insignificant communication, like a newsletter. Hey, thanks so much for signing up. And that person will take it as, I want to marry you. So those are dangerous. And then you've got the jealous type delusion, which, you know, somebody believes that their spouse is out cheating on them, and that can really lead to a divorce and a host of other issues, custody battles, and the list goes on. All right, the next one is the persecutory delusion. That's another common delusion that we see in the mental health field. And the persecutory delusion basically causes the individual to believe that they are being persecuted from family, from friends, from God. Nothing is going my way, so I am being punished completely. So that's the persecutory delusions. Those are really difficult to get rid of because they're non-bizarre. You could be being cyber-stalked. You could be experiencing bullying. You could be being sexually harassed on your job. So, you know, these delusions of persecution can be very difficult because we have to tease apart. Is this really happening? Is this not really happening? Is this an exaggeration? The next is the somatic delusion, and that's basically like a hypochondria. I have heart disease, or there's things flowing through my blood. I just feel it. Some people say that I'm like, you know, they scratch like this all the time. They're like, there's something in my blood and I know there is and I'm going to go crazy kind of thing. It's kind of like heroin addicts, you know. I had an adult client about 9 years ago when I worked in an adult facility. And she used to be both a heroin addict and she had somatic delusion. She believed that she carried a body odor that she did not carry. She said that she felt that she smelled like fish, that she was malodorous to people. And no matter how many times she would bathe or shower, she still believed she was offensive, and it was very hard to get her out of that mindset. So then she came to the conclusion that something was flowing through her bloodstream, and that's why she had the odor. And so I was her therapist, and I was so inexperienced at this point. I was just coming into the field, and I just got this job, and I was like really excited and hopeful about the field. And, you know, she was my first client. And so she would always do this. We would be in group therapy, and she'd be doing this, you know, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I would go over to her and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yes, I'm just having a little bit of a problem. I says, okay, do you want to step out and let's talk about it? And I saw tracks on her arm when we met for the first time. So I had a very hard time differentiating the heroin scratch from the somatic scratch of, I'm just delusional right now and I think things are flowing through my blood. It turned out to be, and it came to be at the conclusion of everything, that she had a somatic delusion. It wasn't the heroin. She hadn't smoked or injected heroin in years. So that was a pretty interesting wake-up call for me. I didn't realize that hypochondria and somatic delusions were that real, but they are. And you know, for one last delusion, we have what's called mixed delusions, and that's when all of these characteristics exist all at the same time. Hard to believe, but sometimes you have a person who's delusional, jealous, feeling that they are being persecuted, and then we also have individuals who may also feel grandiose. So we have mixed delusions where all of it kind of goes together, and some individuals show every last trait and characteristic that we talked about in this video today. Sorry for the long video, guys. There was a lot to cover in that video for you. Thank you so much for being with me today. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up if it was helpful to you, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stick around with us. I will be back to talk about what not to do with these kind of people. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.